G stuff, not ye stuff, and we on the edge with BJ APB tonight, man. And today topic is, and matter of fact, this is to the person that tapped in and donated for this topic. And this topic, they wanted to know how was a trap spot, as they'll call it nowadays. In our era, we'll call it a D.spot, dope spot. And they wanted to know basically what was those, and how did a trap house function in our era. So I'm gonna let BJ take the floor and kind of like narrate the D.spot, dope spot in our era. So BJ, what was a D.spot and a trap spot? Can you take us into the world of a D.spot in our era? The first, like, what was it and what the entry of it looked like?
Well, first I'm gonna say peace and blessing, and thank y'all for tapping in and all the support y'all been giving us. We appreciate it. And in the '80s, my experience with being in a dope house, it was pretty much a regular house. Most of the time people fell short on hard times. So their way of making money was to open up a dope house. And the significance of a dope house was most times we might have a lot of rooms in the house, like the ones I experienced going in. I only been in a few. It might have a gate around the yard. Might have some vicious dogs for protection. You know what I mean? They was already there, but by becoming a spot now, it might be more dogs than usual. Once you enter the spot, it was something that not like the movies, because each city is different. In our city, once you walk in, you would see things like in the living room, you might see a few dudes playing some video games or something. And those was the dudes that was like, there for the protection. And then when you go to the kitchen, you might see somebody over the stove, putting it together, cooking up the dough. Then, as you pass the kitchen, you would go in one room. The one room would be considered like a bookie joint. That's separate from the dope house. It's all in one, but in that bookie joint, when you go in there, that's like the gambling room. You might go in there, it's a pool table, and instead of everybody shooting pool, they shooting dice on the pool table. And then it might be a radio in the corner, and people taking bets on horse races. The person that's running the house be taking bets on the horse races. Other things, football pools, soccer games, whatever you could gamble on. Dog races, whatever. In that room, the bookie joint, everything going in. Then, as you leave out that room and go to the next room, you also will see in the kitchen somebody might be cooking meals, and those meals are to be sold for hustle too. You might have somebody in there cooking up fried chicken, macaroni, collard greens, and a piece of sweet potato pie, and that'd be a plate. Or it'd be some barbecue and some coleslaw and potato salad, you know what I mean? You go in the back. As you head to the back room, you might have two rooms where the people that stay there in those rooms for their privacy. They got their kids in one room studying. They don't want their kids to really see what's going on. And then the other room, one of the parents might be in there. Don't want nobody to see who's in there. And most times, if it's a dude spot, the dude might have his wife in there, and he don't want nobody to see who his wife is or get familiar with his wife, so he pretty much got her barricaded in there. Then he might pass by another room, and this room is where all the activity is. And in this room, they got what you would call the strawberries. The strawberries, a woman that she's prostituting, but she's prostituting inside the house, and most of the time, her form of payment is dope. Instead of accepting money, she accepted dope as a form of payment in exchange for sex. Then you would see dudes coming in and out of there, going in there paying for sex, you know what I mean? And in the very last room would be everything goes. That room might be where the renegade strawberries is at. A renegade strawberry is a woman, she don't work for nobody. She in it for herself. Everything she do.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
She don't pay nobody or nothing. So she's back there working the crowd. That's the room like where all the homeboys or all the dudes, the dope dealers hang at. They might be playing Get Like Me, shooting dice, might be watching a movie, just chilling, drinking, smoking weed, and got the radio playing. And she come back there and she trying to get everybody money, so she come back there and make herself available for everybody in the room to put a price tag on having sex with her. So she might come back there by herself, and everybody will pitch in, and everybody will take turns on her. And so with this type of setting, it's like horrific, but it's also kind of like exciting, because if you've never been in this type of situation, it intrigues you, especially when you know that you can go in this house and you don't have to mac on a woman to have sex. You can just go in there and throw your sales pitch of how much you charging or whatever, and get it out the way. It's no attachments, it's no arguments, it's no nothing. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Sometimes people fall in love with these women. And when they fall in love with these women, these are the guys that end up having a baby by the woman, and then after she had a baby, they take control of custody because they kind of embarrassed, don't want nobody to know they had a baby by a strawberry, because back in the 80s, a strawberry was, it was like taboo. People didn't want to be seen with them, but yet they'd have sex with them. And you had a lot of homies back then, different homies, gang members and non-gang members that would participate in having sex with these women, and be honest with you, I was one of them, because when I first started getting into the street life, I didn't know how to talk to a woman or nothing, Women had told me I was ugly when I was a kid, so I was kind of scared to talk to them. And this was my form of a way of having sex and being able to run the streets,
Right.
Go over to the dope house and pay for some sex, you know what I mean, and go on about my business. It was a way of life, Some people was ashamed of it, you know what I mean? Me, I'm a grown man now, I can tell that story because that was just, a natural thing in the urban neighborhood community. It was a lot of people that didn't participate, but that was because some dudes was lucky enough to, had the looks and was well off at home. Their parents gave them money to survive. Some dudes even had a car at a young age. So them was the dudes that had all the girls that they macked on and had sex with. But me, I wasn't that fortunate at that time, and it was just easier to go around there and have some unprohibited sex and didn't have to worry about nobody calling me, asking me where I've been or what time I'm coming through or bring me a plate or none of that. You just do it and go on about your business. And when you want some more, you pay for some more. You know, there was no complaints.
What I wanted to ask you is, how was some of these women fine ass women back in the days, homie? You know, for people can get a visual of how some of these women look, you know, because some people just judge the name, you know, Strawberry, put their own title and look. But give people an example, homie, on how they looked, you know? Was it different grades of them, like a high class scale of them? Or low grade, you know, what was the scale, homie?
Yeah, like, well, you know, back then, cocaine was fresh to the community as far as freebasing it. Cocaine had been around since the 70s, probably longer than that, you know. I know it was around in the 70s because when I was growing up, I used to see the ballers do this thing called ether base, where they would put cocaine on a piece of aluminum foil and put a lighter up on it, and when the smoke rise, they would take a straw and suck them to smoke. That's what they call ether base.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It had been around for years, but for some reason, 82, 83, 84, 85, it hit our community real hard. And when it hit our community, somebody came up with the idea of making it into rock form and making a pipe to smoke it out of. And when it came, it was like most people in that community was smoking it. And these women that was smoking it, you know, they was doctors, lawyers, judges, school teachers, you know, martial orders, boxers, basketball players, you know what I mean? It was all walks of life, you know, and these women were beautiful. Yeah. And that's why people were soliciting them for sex because, you know, you like, for instance, like in my neighborhood, you had like teachers that was teaching us in elementary that we was jocking them, but we was little kids. And then when we got to junior high school, these teachers started smoking and coming to the dope house. We was recognizing them like, man, that's Miss what's her name, you know, and them fantasies, man, I remember she used to have that big old butt back then and whoop, and they were still, you know, had their weight on them. You know, cocaine wasn't taking people down then.
Right.
So when they came over there, you know, I'm gonna be honest, you know, some of them looking like the Cardi B's, the Mariah Careys, you know what I mean? Then you had some that, you know, had the Queen Latifah look, you know, you had all walks of life. You know what I mean? You had some very beautiful women coming in. And they would come up in there, and once you see them, you know, you couldn't pass up the opportunity, especially like if she was white or Asian, because in our community, those were the two ethnicities that wasn't around our community.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Hey, I'm gonna
Everybody was black and Mexicans.
I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna go on and narrate till you get back in with us.
All right.
Yeah. Shout out Nick Nack. Shout out Trap B, Spiritual Life, and everybody else tapping in, Native Soul. And today's topic is how the D.spot used to be. And this topic, you know, a viewer had, you know, tapped in and donated for this. So that's why this topic is brought up as an important topic for the viewer that contributes for it. And like the homie said, homie, in them trap spots back in them days, homie, you'll get a variety look of women's, homie. Like he said, you'll get them Cardi B's, for the Megan Stallions, the doctors, lawyers, teachers, you know, professors. All of them came through the community. So it wasn't like dudes was trading off for dirt bags. You know, it was quality of choice because all this stuff was kind of new into the community, and dudes was taking full advantage of it, homie. You know, we was using their cards and living in their spots like BJ say, and all that, man. So yeah, it was a hell of a thing at that time. Native Soul on the real.
Using Global Till Link.
Hey.
Back in.
Okay, yeah, I was just narrating to bring you up to speed real quick. I was just telling people about the picks that was inside these spots, so it wasn't like dudes was trading off for trash. You had high quality of females coming through. Might fall on their last, might can't be, you know, Mike was on a budget or something, and dudes was taking opportunity of these opportunities. So I'm gonna go on and let you finish off, BJ.
Right. So most of the time, you know, you have women sometimes that, like you said, was on the budget, and sometimes they had bills to pay, kids to take care of, so they didn't want to spend their money. So the way to get what they wanted or to make some extra money was through having sex. And then how it went, sometimes, you know, these women, by them being pretty, if a dude was considered ugly, or a dude or a dude was blessed, you know, he was well endowed, you know what I mean? Sometimes that costed extra because some women didn't want to mess with a dude that they felt he to them, you know, his physical features wasn't up to par. You know what I mean? Or he looked like he was dusty or something. And then you had some dudes, I'm just keeping it real, you had some dudes that was elephants. You know what I mean? They pull their meat out, and women be like, oh, no, that's going to cost you extra. Because she looking at it like, this dude got something down to his knee.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
He gonna tear something up. So all that costed extra money. It was like, you know, either pay the extra fee or you wasn't gonna get it. You know what I mean? This was all a part of, you know, the inner workings in there, you know, and then you had some dudes that wasn't working with much, and a woman see that and she'd be like, make an excuse not to give him none and give him some oil. You know what I mean? Be like, she'd look at him and be like, oh, yeah, you could come on and we get this out the way. You know, I'll charge you $10 or something. You know what I mean? But that just was the working of it. You know what I mean? Everything had a price up in there. You know, and then you had sometimes other women will get involved and put on the show. You know, it might be 3 or 4 girls they'll put on the show for some change, and they'll freak each other, and we'll sit back and watch, and then everybody might join in, you know what I mean? Then you had, like I said, you had some dudes that wasn't into doing things in the open or didn't want their name out there in that type of circle, and them was the one that'll sneak and pay them and tell them stop by mom's house later on late night when everybody's sleeping, do what they do. You know what I mean?
Right. Hey, I gotta.
By 85.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, people hear a lot about
No, I
these.
was gonna say,
People
by
hear.
85.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
People hear a lot about these dudes.
No,
I mean, a lot of people hear about the females that was kind of moving through the spots, kind of like an option for the street dudes, being an option for the street dudes. How was some of the homegirls or the females that had sex inside these spots that hustled along the dudes? did they have like, because I heard of a phrase called raspberries, homie. So I know it was like, heard from an older female that was in the game hustling. Yeah, I heard from an older female that was in the game hustling, and she
Right.
named them as labeled dudes that was kind of handsome and good looking through these neighborhoods, whether they was gang members or civilian dudes that grew up in these communities that was still decent. Some of the homegirls that had sacks also use some of these dudes for sexual pleasures, homie. Are you aware of that?
Right. Yeah. See, let me explain something about a raspberry so people would understand what a raspberry is. See, a raspberry is like, he's a male gigolo. But the difference between him being a gigolo was he wasn't out there prostituting himself for money most of the time. Most of the time he's prostituting himself for dope. And these dudes, the raspberries, was dudes like that was getting out the pen and had a little size on them, and they was kind of good at giving women pleasure. So when they got on the dope, they would extend their I would just say it, they would extend their skill set to the women in the community for a little cash or a little dough. So what they used to do was, you had homegirls sometimes and other women that was running the spot. When they run the spot, instead of them having boyfriends, they would call on the raspberry to take care of the business. But sometimes the raspberry, he knows just what to do to get him to that point. Just like a strawberry knows what to do to get a man to the point he's trying to reach. So the raspberry would be the guy that would sneak to the house while nobody's around, and he'd go in there and do something strange for a little change. Whatever was on her agenda. And I remember one time, I'm not going to say no names or nothing like that, but I remember one time it was raspberry. He had just got out the pen, and he had been hoeing around the neighborhood. He was working Fig, he was working Main Street, he was working wherever he could go. He was doing his thing. And he came to the spot. He had made a little change out there doing his thing. So when he came to the spot, he came to buy some dope, and everybody seen him pull out a nice little whop of money. And everybody was like, man, he out there might have to start following him around and catch some clientele and start raspberry. He got a nice little grip on it.
Right.
He was all laughing about it, and one of the homies got at him and asked him, like, man, you be turning tricks? He was trying to clown him. And the raspberry told him, he said, why you asking? You got some money? And everybody started laughing, and the homie got offended. And the homie was like, don't get at me like that. And the raspberry told him, like, man, this is a business, You got some money, I'll stand up and you too. He was like, I don't know. Ain't no shame in my game. He was like, nothing off limits when you got the money.
Right, clowning.
That kind of like, that's kind of, but the homie learned from getting in his business.
Right.
That was that man's business. But the homie was trying to clown him in front of everybody because he came in there to buy some dope, and the homie was trying to clown him like, man, you be out here hoeing. What I mean? Because at that time, you rarely saw a man admit that he's hoeing. You know what I mean? You always seen women, but they had men actually doing it. Some men, just like I said, did it on the low, and the homie just happened to be, he wasn't on the low. He was whatever was clever. But that's what a raspberry is. A raspberry is a male hoe.
Right. So now to get into, people hear about these hood spots, D-spots, was these like, was these also like gang hangouts? Did gangs reside here, live in these spots? What was it like, homie? Because I know at that time, no homie or homegirl was really homeless, living inside these spots. Did gangs reside in these spots? How did that work, homie?
I'm gonna say, to us in our communities, in the gang community, the dope house was a transition home. What they have now, all over the communities, how people get out and they go stay in these homes and they help you get a job and all that. Before all that was happening, that's what the trap house was to the gang members. The trap house was a transition home.
Right.
You had people coming home from prison, and they had what you call it. Some had been disowned by their family because some families be feeling like you put the gang before them.
Right.
And then some chose not to go home because they didn't want to go back to mom and pop's house and follow the rules, or go to their grandparents' house, because a lot of us, our parents and grandparents, was real Christian based. It was strict on certain things.
Right.
So it was easy to, parole and go to the dope house. And back then, like we said about the blood love and the crip love and all that, back then, homies would put you in the game. As soon as you come up in there, instead of giving you some money, a homie give you an ounce of dope and let you work and get on your feet. It was up to you to be stingy with yourself until your pockets got fat. And that's what the trap house was. The trap house was everything.
Yeah,
it was a safe haven for us as well. Because whether the trap house was a bad thing in the community or not, it also saved a lot of lives, because a lot of us was able to go hang out there and didn't have to hang out on the street corners. And that kept a lot of us alive, and a lot of us from catching bullets back then. That's why a lot of homies that you see that are older now don't have no bullets in their body, because they was able to have places to go and hang out at instead of hanging out in the front yard or walking up and down the street all day long, looking like a target.
Right.
So the trap house, it had its goods, and it had its bad.
Right.
And the good to it was, like I said, it kept a lot of homies safe. But at the same time, based on we were selling dope, the dope was destroying our community, and we didn't know that then.
Right.
We didn't know that the effect it was going to have on our families and friends. That's why a lot of people, when I was coming up, a lot of people sold weed. They didn't sell rocks. And the reason they didn't sell rocks was because they didn't want to destroy none of the parents or their homie sisters or lives enough. The trap house, you see some extraordinary stuff. You might...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You might even see a pregnant woman in there having sex for some drugs or something. You know what I mean? It ain't no telling what you see in there. You even see, sometimes you'll see men coming through trying to solicit other men on the low to get some drugs. That's just how bad it was, you know what I mean?
Right.
And in the trap house, not every trap house, but most trap houses, it was somebody for everybody. There was a little bit of everything going on.
Right. I got a good question right here, dog. Somebody said, did the active homies ever look down on the hustlers like they weren't putting it on for the hood? Like, how did the active homies look at some of the hustler homies, or was some of the hustler homies active? How did some homies view these spots? Did the homies feel like the homies that had the spots? Did the homie? I'm gonna let you take this, and when you come back,
Hold that thought,
yeah. Trap B, I got you on that question, homie. When the homie come back, I got you on that question. Lou God, what it do, loved one? Yeah, man, them trap spots, homie, you know, they was a lifesaver. Uh, you know, they was a lifesaver. They was a stepping stone to a lot of us, you know, first getting our independency. You know, some of us was able to rent a room out of some of these people's houses that had big old houses. Our kids moved off. We was able to get our feet wet with our first establishments, and that's what kept us wanting to get our independency. You know what I'm saying? Where they viewed as pimps or players. You talking about the homies that was regulating the spots, were they viewed as pimps and players, or what? That's native soul. That's what you talking about. Uh, I mean, you know, in them spots, homie, it was like you was a pimp to some of them, homie. You know what I'm saying? Foster, what's up, homie? Yeah, it was like you was at a pimp sometime, homie. Hey, BJ.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, before I roll into
Yeah.
that, before I roll into what I was saying, somebody was saying, somebody asked, was the homies that had these spots, was they viewed as pimps or players? And I'ma say, when you was in these spots, homie, it was all that, like BJ said, going in these spots, homie. And some of us was considered pimps or players, or some of them was dudes, stepping stones from dealing with the strawberries and the females in our neighborhoods. Some of that was stepping stones leading dudes into the field of probably being players and pimps, homie. You know, some that's how some dudes feed, because sometimes you would get these personal smoker females that was doing their thing, homie. And if you had, you know, long hair, style, swag, driving, kind of doing your thing, they'll hit you with a choosing fee. Cause like BJ said, they wasn't all toe up. They wasn't toe up. These were some good looking females, man. You wouldn't never knew. So some of these females treat you like that and introduce the game to you like that. But now to go into the question that somebody asked you, BJ, how did some of the homies, just say a homie getting cracking, just say I got a spot. Dudes view me as not being superly active, but I got a spot. Will homies try to Bo Billy me, homie? Or how would that go in the turf? Is this my spot? Dudes feel like I ain't really putting it on, or I ain't doing too much. Would I have a problem in the turf, homie?
I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, if you was a dude that was just claiming the neighborhood, like your name wasn't out there doing nothing but selling dope, you ain't never did nothing around there, nobody could verify. I'm gonna try to muscle you. Even though in the hood everybody play their part, but sometimes you have dudes that these super gangsters in the pen, and they come home and they got an addiction. So, and that addiction becomes a monster. It becomes a gorilla on your back. So them was the dudes that, like, when they got out, you became their hustle. If they knew they could come around there and muscle you up out of something, and you wasn't gonna do nothing, then yeah, that was gonna happen. That's just how it was in the game. You know what I mean? In the game, like I said, everybody plays their part. But if you was one of them dudes out there doing your stuff, people respected you, and even then, you could be a respected homie from the turf. That monster don't care who you is. You know what I mean? And that's why sometimes you see smokers getting beat up, stuff like that. You see some homies get ran off until they get themselves together, because when that monster get on their back, they didn't care about how dangerous you was. If you got caught slipping in the cat to snatch your fat.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You know, we used to have, just say for instance, us that was selling dope. we was gangsters, but we had smokers pull up late night and then see somebody like me out there selling dope. You know, when I was young, I was a little fat boy. And they'd see me out there selling dope. They knew I couldn't chase them, I couldn't catch them. So they'd just walk up and hit me up for some dope, and I hand over the dope, and he act like he gonna pay me, and he'll holler one time. And I look the other way to see where the police at, and I look back, he's breaking down the street, and I can't catch him. It's over with.
Right.
We done did that.
Yeah, they was getting over, homie. That's for damn sure. That shit was a dangerous get down, homie. Back in them days, homie. I remember being in it.
What about your era?
In my era, homie. Me being introduced to a blow spot, dope spot, trap spot, hustle spot, homie. It was like you said, homie, it was a whole nother world, whole different dimension. And it was also a sense of independency for those of us that didn't want to stay with our parents, like you said. You know, some of these spots, kids would go off and move on, and you'd be able to rent a room and do your thing, homie. You know, bring your female company there. Once you advance up, you hustling, you be able to rent a room and bring your personal female company there. You know what I'm saying? And also, like you said, back then, it kept the hood tight, more homies around. You know, homies that you would see looking probably kind of rough or going through it. You wouldn't have that season then, because all of us would be in a trap spot then, showering, cleaning, and everybody hustling, whether we was putting in on the sack together, you know, to stay winning. And as far as the females, like I said, I had a few, you know, living that lifestyle, homie. Like I said, I had a few, homie, you know, a lot of them, you know, I had a few that was beauticians, homie, you know, that kept dudes that had hair done, you know, kept our hairs done inside the neighborhood. We had some that was cooks, you know, that kept us, you know, fed, homie, like you said, you know. We had ones that had vehicles, homie, where we was able to rent their vehicles when we didn't have one and move around, homie. So it was a hell of a life and a hell of an experience with that. Also, it was sad experience because, like you said, when we fall into addiction, we had started, you know, getting over on one another, and that's what brought in the discipline where the homies that had to start putting hands on one another, homie. And, you know, a lot of that time, like you said, dudes ran off, and a lot of us got ourselves in order and said things wasn't us, you know. And I always like to put myself in the equation because we live this lifestyle, homie. And, yeah, that's how them spots was, homie, you know. They had their ups and downs, homie. But the Swain the Mo, you know, and shout out to the viewer that tapped in with us, homie. That's our brief analysis, rundown on the trap spot, D.spot. And we gonna change the narrative. And if anybody want to shoot some questions out or want to know something and we may be knowledgeable, man, go on and tap in, homie, while I got BJ on for a minute, man. BJ. Yeah, I think his line might be down, man. But yeah, tap in, homie, if you know what I'm saying, got something on your mind or something you want to know about or whatever, man. We here with you, we tapped in and all that, homie. Yeah, them spots, man, I even met a few good people in them spots, homie. You know what I'm saying? You meet good people, homie, through them spots. You know, a lot of entertainers came through them, man, especially inside of Inglewood back in the days when the Forum was popping and the Lakers was back there before they built everything up, man. It was really jumping through there, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of dudes was able to get in and get out, make a living for their families, homie, you know. And the moral of the story, I would say, homie, to the youngsters, homie, if you live in that fast lifestyle, get what you can while you in it and get up out of it where you can do something positive with yourself, homie. You know what I'm saying? Don't create that as a lifestyle, homie. You know what I'm saying? Said, do I got a
This
rage
call and
story?
your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
The new Inglewood is unrecognizable. Hell yeah, it is, homie. It look brand new through there. You hit certain corners up there on Century, you would damn near forget you somewhere else. I got lost over there and grew up there my whole life. Do I got some rage stories, man? I do got some rage stories, homie. Actually, I remember this was like mid-90s, homie. Homies had been going back and forth to jail at that time, homie. In the mid-90s, been going back and forth to jail. And at this particular time, I had to just get out off of county lid and everything. Matter of fact, I'm on bail, homie. I ain't even on no county lid. I go in for a cannon, wind up bailing out. And back in them days, homie, you might do a couple months to your family or something, get some money together. You see what they talking about in court, and you will bail out. So I wind up bailing out, homie. And so when you bail out sometime, we'll blow smoke up our girls' asses and stuff like that. Like, man, I'm going to go over here and collect some money and, I'll be right back. So I wind up getting out on bail, hitting the turf, supposed to go over there with Dulo and them, Taco and them, and the rest of the homies was at and collect a little change, homie. In the process of me going over there to collect a little change, homie, sitting in the spot blowing some herb. Matter of fact, the homie Tricky there, the homie Deuce from Family, Habit from CPF there. It's a gang of homies in the trap spot, homie. So anyway, as we all up in the trap spot, homie, one time come hit the spot. You know what I'm saying? Barge, smoker wind up letting them in. They come up in the spot crazy, homie. And on everything. So the homeboy, Lil G Pint Deuce, PIP, he's alive at that time. So while the police up and bamming before they come in, he dives out the 3-story apartment window across onto another roof there. So he looking at me through the window like, come on, big homie, come on, big homie. So I'm like standing in the window, like, G'd up, looking like I'm about to jump. One time looking up with cannons on us like this. But I'm scared to take that leap, homie, because I'm kind of spooked to heights. So I think another homie take that leap, homie. But I don't take that leap. So I'm spooked. He like, come on, homie. So I don't take the leap, homie. I don't take the leap, dog. And I wind up getting gaffled up in the raid, homie. And going to jail and shit up in that raid for not jumping. And I remember when I was up in there, the homies was clowning, hollering about because I was having little sweat attacks, homie. But we was going to jail back and forth then, homie. Who wanted to go to jail? Who wanted to keep going to jail, homie? So hell yeah, I couldn't sleep, homie. I was trying to get it. I wound up having to double bail out of there, and we was deep. That's when the homies would go to the substation, be 15, 16 homeboys in there thick, and we'd wind up, you know what I'm saying? Probably it'd be some Crips there, probably come from Compton, different spot, got gaffled in Inglewood, and we'll wind up, being near deep and running them dudes up in the court tank, letting them get a taste of some Inglewood Bloods, and we'll be able to get a taste of some different jurisdictions of Crips on the fade, homie. Same way if we go to jail in L.A., 77 Division back in the days, homie. I remember me and my homeboy Lil Bugsy, we went to jail in L.A., 77 Division, homie, and we get into it with some Broadways up in there, homie, and they packs us out, homie. So that's how we do it back in the days when we used to be in different jurisdiction substations, homie. We'd go up on each other, but as soon as they found out we was beat offs and Lil Bugsy had the long ponytails and all that, we commenced to straight locking up, chunking them up in there, homie, and that's what that was, homie. But yeah, 89 on up, G stuff, not Ye stuff, homie. 89 up, how do you cope with having sickle cell? How often do you experience having pains and crisis? Homie, I'm going to keep it G'd, homie, probably like a few times out the month. But, once you've been born with this, homie, you kind of could adapt to it, know when to fall back, lean back. I try to stay fluid up and flowing right. And I kind of use this it's crazy to say, but the hood be like therapeutic to dudes that got disabilities or homegirls that got disabilities. Cause this is therapeutic, homie. You might can call a homie homegirl. You know, everybody from the hood got people they close to, and you know, they'll walk us through. Or you just want to feel so strong, homie, till you just, you know, you work to get yourself together to get back on the scene for your peoples, homie. You know, they keep you strong through this, homie, when you dealing with disabilities and banging, homie, you know. Hell yeah, man. Well, shit, homie, I'm gonna get ready to tap out, homie. 89 on up, and we was on the edge with BJ APB, homie. What B-Dog hood did you visit often on the east side? On the east side, homie, we used to go to the Swans a lot, homie, you know, cause we went over there to hustle when our hood was dry, when they used to have them drought seasons. So you could say we was in the Swans, homie. The homies was in the Villains, because we got the Villain route thing through Cleedog them and Ripple them. What else east side hoods, homie? I remember when the Peblos had the arcade over there, homie. Back in the days, we'll go to the Peblos, homie. So you know that's about the ones we kind of like, you know, kind of function with. Yeah, man. Yeah, it'll take you down, homie. But you gotta, man, homie. I think that's kind of a whiff that make you strong through it a lot, homie. And you gotta have strong homies and strong homegirls, or a strong female, basically, to even deal with you, because you could be active and functioning one day, then probably ate something bad, or the weather then got turned up on you, and you be down the other day. You know what I'm saying? I done been in penitentiaries and hit the yard where it be cold, and the homies give me like, I be on the yard with like 3-4 jackets on and sweatshirts and all that, homie. You know, just stay warm on the penitentiary yard and stuff, homie. But yeah, that's how that worked, homie. And I appreciate everybody that tapped in, homie. Salute. And I seen the thing with the dude on YouTube from Inglewood Legends, and he talked about the LCGs, which is the Inglewood Legend Crips, and the neighborhood power rules, homie. Yeah, man, on the 5th day, man, I seen your video been up 3 days. So on the 5th day for the 500 block, I'm going to drop my response to your video, man, with all due to good content creating, homie. Thanks. What's your prodigy on Mob Deep? Yeah, I heard he had sickle cell, homie, but you know, a lot of us be drinking and doing other things, homie, that probably can induce our time out here, man. So, you know, shit, man, I'm thankful, homie. I can't lie, homie. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to tap in with my program, homie, and do my thing, man. Much love, solid love to everybody. And like BJ say, peace and blessings, homie, to the next get down.